This is the daily video for July 13th. Today we're going to continue in Module 2. On Friday, you looked at one of the ways that data can be collected, and that's through surveys. Today we're going to focus on why data is collected. And we're going to do that by looking at 4 different terms. And these 4 vocabulary terms, by the end of the day, you're going to want to understand all 4 of these very well because we're going to use them throughout the rest of the term. And so the 4 vocabulary words you're going to look at today are population, parameter, sample, and statistic. And I was going to go through an example here in the daily video of these 4 terms. And then you're also going to find several examples in the videos for today, as well as in the worksheet, on the instructions, on Blackboard. I've tried to give you lots of examples of these 4 terms. So what happens when a researcher wants to learn about something, there's generally a group the researcher wants to know about, and then there's something about that group the researcher wants to know about. So as an example, suppose a researcher is interested in all people that live in the state of Kentucky, and the researcher would like to know the percentage of those people that smoke. In statistics, we have very special names for these groups and the things that the researcher wants to know. The group the researcher wants to know about is what we call the population, and what the researcher wants to know about that group is what we call the parameter. So in this case, the population is all people that live in the state of Kentucky, and the parameter is the percentage of all people that live in the state of Kentucky that smoke cigarettes. Now notice, in order for the researcher to get a numeric value to the parameter, in other words, for the researcher to know that exact percentage of people that smoke in the state of Kentucky, they would actually have to go and survey every single person that lives in the state of Kentucky. And this is something that's practically impossible. And to talk to that many people would take a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of resources that the researcher probably doesn't have. So getting an exact value of the parameter, in other words, knowing exactly the percentage of people in the state of Kentucky that smoke, is a very difficult thing to obtain. So instead, what a researcher would do is the researcher would only look at a small group that live in the state of Kentucky. In other words, a subset or a subgroup from the population. So let's say the researcher sends out 100 surveys to people that live in the state of Kentucky. The 100 people that the researcher sends the surveys to, that's what we call the sample. The sample is a small group taken from the population, and it's a much more manageable number. Once the researcher sends those 100 surveys and the researcher gets them back, what they can do is they can calculate the percentage of those 100 people that smoke. And let's say that 17% out of the 100 smoked. This 17% is what we call the statistic. So notice the statistic is calculated from the sample, and both of those terms start with S. If we could calculate the parameter, it would come from the population, and those both start with P, so they go together. The field of statistics actually gets its name because what we're going to try to do is take that statistic, in other words, that information that we can obtain from our sample, and we're going to use it to estimate the parameter, the thing that we actually want to know. So again, the parameter is what the researcher really wants to know, but they're only able to obtain a statistic, so we're going to use that statistic to estimate the parameter. Now, there are only under certain conditions is the statistic a good estimate in the parameter. And one of those conditions is how the sample is chosen from the population. And we're going to spend a lot of time in Module 2 talking about when is the statistic a good estimate of the parameter, and what information, in other words, what can the statistic tell me about the value of the parameter. And that's going to be one of the big focus in the next week or so. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is I wanted to offer some bonus points on Beyond the Classroom 2. Let me give you a little bit of information about Beyond the Classroom 2 before I offer this though. Beyond the Classroom 2 is going to take a little bit longer than the first one. It's a little more involved. What you're going to do is you're going to write a survey, hopefully using some of the techniques that you learned on Friday. You're going to go out and distribute that survey to 25 people. So in other words, you're going to collect some data from 25 people. And then you're going to analyze that data in your paper. And so you're going to have some statistics and hopefully use them to estimate some parameters. So how you're going to want to approach this assignment is you're going to want to think of yourself as a researcher. And so there's going to be some group that you're interested in learning about. So what I'm going to offer the bonus points for is if you go ahead and take the time today to write your survey and identify the group that you're interested in, I'm going to give you 5 bonus points on Beyond the Classroom 2. Now this is work that you would have to do anyways, but if you go ahead and do it today by midnight, I'll give you 5 bonus points, and I'll look over your survey to make sure there's no issues with it before you distribute it to people so that they can take it. So what I would like you to do is first, if you're interested in doing this today, is send me an email, and I'm going to send you a worksheet to fill out just to kind of help you organize your thoughts. First, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to identify some group that you're interested in learning about. So for example, let's say I'm interested in learning about UK students. Well, that would be the group that you're interested in learning about, and that's what you'll learn today is called your population. And so you'll want to identify that first. The other thing you're going to want to identify, and maybe, I guess really this could come before you identify the group, is a topic you're interested in. So something that you want to learn about. So maybe I want to know about study habits that students at the University of Kentucky have. And so that would be my topic, and that would be my population. Once you identify your topic and your population, you're going to develop 3 survey questions that you're going to ask people to fill out. One thing, let me make a comment about the topic and the group you're going to want to talk about or learn about, and then I'll talk about the 3 different survey questions. Make sure that your group and your topic go together. So as an example, let's say you were interested in learning about how users feel about iPhones. Well, in that case, it wouldn't make sense to make your group be all University of Kentucky students, because not all University of Kentucky students use iPhones. Your group in this case would want to be people who use iPhones, because Android users aren't going to be able to give you any information about how pleased people are with their experience with iPhones. So just make sure that your topic and your group add up. Or for example, I had a student give a survey once about entrepreneurs. If you're going to ask questions that deal with people being entrepreneurs, then the group you want to learn about are small business owners or entrepreneurs. It's not just going to be anybody off the street. So make sure that those do match up. Now, for the 3 survey questions, there's 3 different types of questions you'll need to write, and so let me talk about them real quick. One of them is just going to need to be a yes or no question. And so the only option for answers you can have to this question are yes, no. There cannot be a maybe option. It's just yes or no. The second question you're going to need to write, or one of the other types of questions, is an essay question. And that's just an open-ended question where people give their opinions. You don't give them options for answers. They provide the answers themselves. And then the third question needs to be what's called a rating scale question. And this one is the one that students find the hardest. So let me make sure I talk about what is and what isn't a rating scale question. Rating scale questions do not talk about frequency. So for example, if I was interested in people's gym habits and I asked someone, how often do you go to the gym on a scale from 1 to 5? 1 being never, 5 being 7 times a week. That is not a rating scale question. Even though it uses the word rating, since it's asking about frequency and counts, it's not a rating scale question. Rating scale questions give a scale, and they ask someone's opinion on something. So an example of a rating scale question could be, on a scale from 1 to 5, how would you rate the equipment at the gym? 1 being extremely poor, 2 being poor, 3 being okay, 4 being good, and 5 being very good. And notice there that when I gave the scale for them to rate, I also identified what each of the different ratings were. I said what 1 was, I said what 2 is, I said what 3 is. And you're going to want to include that on your survey questions so that when someone takes that survey, they know exactly what each of the numbers represents. Now, as far as limitations on your topic really can be anything you're interested in. I've had students turn in topics that were very serious, and then I've had students turn in topics that are very lighthearted. What's your favorite sandwich? How do you feel about peanut butter and jelly? All the way up to how do you feel about gay marriage or other, topics that are very hot in the news. So your topic really can be anything you're interested in. Remember that you are going to eventually have to distribute your survey to 25 people, and that's going to want to be a subgroup from your population. So if you when you choose the group you're interested in, make sure it is a group that you at least have some access to. So for example, if your group you're interested in are people that live in Hawaii, make sure you know at least 25 people that actually live in Hawaii that you could speak to. Most of the time students pick UK students or people that live in Kentucky, groups that are easily accessible. And if you have trouble with that, just let me know when you send me your email or, after you turn in the worksheet, and I can help you with that as well. So again, in order to get the 5 bonus points, if you're interested, just send me an email. I'll send you a worksheet to fill out. In all honesty, students usually are able to write their surveys in 15-20 minutes, and then you'll just email that back to me by the end of the day, and you'll get your 5 bonus points. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will talk to you tomorrow.